Hey guys, welcome to A Place to Thrive. I'm Heather, and today we are going to be talking about Rare Disease Day. Rare Disease Day occurs worldwide every year on the last day of February. This is a dedicated day to bring awareness to rare diseases and help people get access to treatment and medical representation. I first became aware of Rare Disease Day when I was diagnosed with Eosinophilic Esophagitis, or EOE for short. And let me tell you, there are so many people that can benefit from a dedicated day to bring awareness to their struggles around getting a diagnosis and then living with what life becomes after actually receiving a diagnosis. Let's start a conversation in the comments. Let me know what rare disease or any disease that you or a loved one has been affected with. Over 7,000 rare diseases affect more than 30 million people in the United States. Now, I'm focusing on the United States because that is where I'm from. Many of these diseases are life-threatening and do not have treatments. It can be hard to come up with treatments due to the fact that these diseases are rare, so conducting clinical trials is difficult. The Orphan Drug Act defines a rare disease as a disease or condition that affects less than 200,000 people in the United States. I'm going to share my diagnosis story in a very condensed version. If you are currently seeking a diagnosis, already have your diagnosis, or somewhere in between, you can understand how hard it can be to share your story in a short version because it is such a journey to get to your diagnosis. If you can relate to how difficult it can be to relay your diagnosis story, hit that like button. My story has been developing over a couple of decades. There is no short story from point A to point B. It's kind of all over the place, but here goes. So when I was a kid, I suffered from pretty severe allergies, and I thought most of them were seasonal due to the symptoms that I had. I had hay fever a lot, but as I am doing more research and getting diagnoses and seeing doctors, I'm realizing that actually food allergies can present as hay fever and a lot of different things. It's not just anaphylaxis or rashes. Food allergies can affect you in a lot of weird ways. So as a kid, I was always battling allergies. I was getting tonsillitis, strep throat, a lot. I was having colds. I had severe reflux from as long as I can remember, but my dad was pretty sick and he had reflux, and I knew he took medicine for it, but I just never, for whatever reason, I really never complained about having reflux. I just lived with it. And it wasn't until I was about 18 that I actually started treating it. And I don't know if you can tell my voice, but I have severe ulceration in my esophagus. And so I kind of always sound like I just woke up because it's kind of scratchy. So another symptom, I guess I should say, that I had was this feeling in my body. And it's super hard to explain. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this video, but it was just some type of pain that it's really hard to explain. But after having my daughter, it became so severe that I had to go see a doctor, and that's when I really started seeking a diagnosis. And it got so bad that I couldn't button my daughter's onesies. I couldn't lift her out of her crib. It was a very scary time. And unfortunately, it took a very, very long time to get no answers. I went to see a doctor, and after he exhausted all the tests that he could do, he wanted to send me to the Mayo Clinic. Well, I waited 6 weeks to get a phone call back from them, and they told me that there wasn't one very close to where I live, and so they wanted to send me to a Mayo trained doctor. Well, this doctor was 4 hours from where I live, so every time I went to go see him, I had to go 4 hours one way, so 8 hours round trip, and that's if we didn't stop. And I did this for several years. My husband was amazing. He always took off work to take me. So after going to that doctor, about 5 years after I originally started seeking answers, I was given the diagnosis of fibromyalgia, and this was when I was maybe 2 months pregnant with my second kid. So during the pregnancy with my son, I had several complications. I was supposed to be on bed rest, and I ended up finding a doctor and working with him. He was keeping an eye on my spleen because it was enlarged, and I had several lymph nodes throughout my body, that were enlarged, and they didn't know what was causing it. And he was going to run more tests after I had my son, but he ended up moving to Florida, and so I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't have a doctor lined up after him. Nobody. I just had never seen that kind of care from any doctor before, and so just really didn't know where to go. I finally decided to go have an appointment with an internal medicine doctor, and he wanted me to get a scope done. So my son that I was pregnant with in the previous doctor I was in, my son was now 6 months old, and I was in the operating room, and they were about to hook up my IV, or no, they had my IV in, and they were about to hook up the anesthesia. Is that how you say it? I think so. Okay, so they were about to hook that up, and the doctor runs in and he says, "Stop, stop, stop, stop." I'm like, "What?" He says, "She's pregnant." And I looked at him and I said, "No, I'm not. I have a baby right there. He's only 6 months old. I am not pregnant, okay? I'm not pregnant." So anyway, they sent me over to the OB doctor, and she did a sonogram. And at first they thought it was an ectopic pregnancy, which that was really scary moment there for a bit. For one, I just had my son that was now 6 months old, and it took me 5 years to be ready for baby number 2, and now they're telling me I'm having baby number 3, and then I hear that it could be a very complicated pregnancy and he may not make it. And thank goodness I had the OB doctor that I did, because she was just thrilled when she saw our little tiny dude on the ultrasound. She was basically jumping up and down like, "There he is, there he is." We didn't know it was a boy at the time, but anyway, spoiler alert, he was a boy. But thank goodness for that doctor, because I probably would have handled the whole situation differently had it not have been such a grateful doctor. She was just, the attitude of your doctor can make a huge difference in how you handle certain news. But I was just thankful to have her for that time of my life. So needless to say, I didn't get a scope that day. And it took me about 4 years before I actually went back to him and continued looking for answers. So I have this problem. The lymph nodes behind my ears will swell up real big, and it'll go on for weeks or it'll go on for days. I really don't know what's going to happen. And so I've made doctor's appointments when they're swollen, and then by the time I get in, it's better. And they tell me, well, call and make an appointment when it's actually happening, and then we can evaluate you. And it's just, it was difficult to actually get an appointment when that was happening. So I finally got in, and they did blood work, and my liver enzymes came back extremely elevated, and the doctor was a little bit concerned, and he referred me to a specialist. And I went to the specialist, and he did a scope and a liver biopsy. So thankfully the liver biopsy came back normal. That was an experience that I would rather not have had. The scope is when I found out that I have the eosinophilic esophagitis. So the eosinophils were coming up into my esophagus. I won't go into detail about what EOE is in this video, but it is an autoimmune response in the esophagus. So fast forward again, after I had the EOE diagnosis, I wanted to go on to see if I had any food allergies, because the roof of my mouth was itching so bad. I don't know if any of you have experienced that. If you have, leave a comment down below, and if you have an answer as to what was causing it, let me know, because I still don't exactly know what causes the roof of my mouth to itch sometimes, but it can be so bad that I wake up during the night from it. So I got food allergy tested and environmental allergies tested. I expected to have a lot of environmental allergies. I didn't expect to have food allergies, except I was thinking maybe bananas. Once I got the skin prick test results back for food allergies, oh my gosh, it turned my world upside down, because I had over 30 foods that I was highly reactive to, and chicken and broccoli were my two highest. So they were, I was like severely allergic to those based on the skin test. Chicken was the main thing I ate at that time. So, wow, I felt lost, and I'm still trying to figure out how to eat, but I'm so thankful that I got those tests done, because it led me to a whole food plant-based diet, which I believe the diseases that I have, that I can reverse them with diet by eating plant-based foods. I just last week had an appointment with a lifestyle medicine doctor, and he's running blood work, and it should be back here in a couple of days, and I'm so excited to be working with him. I'm trying to make this video not go out too long, so I'm just going to summarize really quick what diagnoses that I have. I'll start by listing the common ones, and then I'll list the rare diseases. The common diagnoses that I have received is rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, allergies, although it is rare to have the amount of allergies that I do. The number of things that I'm allergic to is rare. And then I also have fibromyalgia. The rare diseases that I have been diagnosed with is antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease of the blood, eosinophilic esophagitis, which is an autoimmune disease in the esophagus, and then possibly Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I'd been to a doctor. He's the one that said that I probably have that, but it wasn't worth doing the testing to find out. I don't know if I'll ever get the testing done or not. It is really cold in this room where I'm recording. Another common disease that I've been diagnosed with is migraines. And it was due to migraines and miscarriages that led to the test being ran that showed that I have antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. As someone that has been diagnosed with multiple common and rare diseases that are for the most part invisible, just by looking at me, most people probably wouldn't assume that I am as sick as I am. I can understand how it feels to try to live a normal life, trying to meet expectations of others that don't know that you're sick. I want this to be a space where people can come and feel safe to share their stories, and I'm going to share different ways that I have adapted my life to try to live as normally as possible. And I'm going to share my journey as I continue to learn new ways to thrive despite health challenges. So if that is something that you are looking for, please subscribe and hit that like button, because it really helps my channel out. And another thing that you can do, if you know somebody suffering that would like a community, you can share my channel with them.
I met an old man. I said, tell me your story. He took out a notepad and wrote something for me.